Hi, and welcome to some AI news, which yet again is quite unexpected that on a late Friday, Saturday morning Europe time, we get a new model. And for this time it's from OpenAI, and this time it's ChatGPT 5.6. It also has some new naming, which I will go into, but in general, there's some good news, there's some bad news, and there's a lot of unknown news in this. So let's dive into it. Let's start with the good, despite the bad being quite bad at the moment. But we have some new model names, and just to understand it and compare it, here's the 5.5, which we had a 5.5 Pro, a 5.5, and then we had a 5.4 mini. There never came a 5.5 mini and nano. That's quite normal that they don't get out with the release, but I've just put them in here because we need to do some comparison. And then we had the reasoning levels, all depending on what we needed. So we had X high, high, medium, and low, which has been rebranded to light in example codex, but in the API it's still called low, where we care. And then we had none. Now we get new tiers. We don't have any Pro or Mini labeling right now, but we have something called Sol, Terra, and Luna. So I think they are quite okay names, Sol being a big thing, Terra being the normal thing, and Luna being the little small thing up in the sky. To me, it looks like that Sol is the new 5.5, or the evolution of 5.5. It's not the Pro level because it has 5.5 pricing. For the Pro, I think it's this new mode that they call Ultra. So I think that's just a new tier of Pro. There's almost no information, but there's a benchmark that shows that this is the best one by a little, and that's normally what the Pro have been so far. What becomes a little more unknown is what Terra and Luna actually is. It doesn't seem like Terra is the mini. It seems to be too good to be a mini, but we might have that as a new benchmark, but it's also a slightly too expensive to be a mini. More about that later. And then we have Luna, which is probably the mini or perhaps the nano, unknown at this point. And then we have the reasoning. The reasoning is that we have a new tier called Max, while we have all the other ones still. This I actually like. Not that I'm gonna use Max really for anything, but this finally aligns the two major models out there, Claude and OpenAI, in having the same reasoning. Almost. In that Claude doesn't have a none mode, but we now have max, X high, medium, and low on both Claude and OpenAI. So now we can finally do some API standard alignments and get it into agent framework and extensions AI and so on. So that's really, really good. Google is almost there as well. They only have a high, medium, and low, but perhaps they also settle in to this. So that's really, really good to begin to finally get some standardization in terms of what reasoning actually means. For some reason, Sol doesn't have a none mode, so it seems like it can't do non-thinking for some reason. At least they don't show them in the benchmarks. Moving on, if we look at intelligence and token consumption and pricing, we can see they only show from a few different benches. At the moment, they don't show the classic ones like DeepSuite and all the ones that are more out there. So they have one for GeneBench, which is some biology to bench and so on. I don't think it's because they are trying to game what bench they have been best at. It's just the ones that are more about security and stuff. So Sol is definitely the biggest, and we can also definitely see that Max definitely uses more tokens than X-High do. But we can see again, and this is a really good thing, that Sol is beginning to use even less tokens than X-High, than 5.5 did. But it seems to be only the most capable model, so there's some intelligence versus amount of tokens being used that actually happens. So it means that we might all be able to actually run on the highest model in quiet height modes with a lower cost anyway, because we can see Sol X-High is less than 5.5 X-High. So that's quite exciting that can happen. But we can then see the lower models are not as good at doing this. So we can see, okay, X-High is still better in Terra, which these are two very comparable models, it seems, while Luna X-High spends way more tokens. So it's a little like the Google models right now that use way too many tokens, or the Claude models. But the really, really intelligent models are really good at using fewer tokens, meaning both less cost and, for me, more important, the speed we can actually get through things. So we can see that X-High is still actually the second best among all this. So Terra don't really win unless you really spend a lot of extra tokens and thereby time. But it could be that for a reason that we see over here, that Terra might be the new norm for non-developers in Codex and so on, while research and very advanced coding happens up in Sol. But we'll see. Luna, way further down. I think it's the mini models, but we will see. Oh, I don't think we can ever compare it between 5.5 and 5.6 completely, but that this is just a new norm that we have 3 levels with these 5 different levels of reasoning. When it comes to cost, I put in a small list, and I've taken older models and also some Claude models just for comparison. So we have 5.5 Pro, which is by far the most expensive, and I think we will get a Sol Ultra that roughly lies in this. They don't mention any pricing for Ultra. They just quickly show it in a bench and nothing more. Fable was double the price of 5.5, and Sol and 5.5 are the same pricing, which is really, really good in that we at least didn't get a price hike, but at the same time that we can see it uses less tokens. So in real life work, it will actually become cheaper to run Sol than it will to run 5.5. So definitely for development and stuff, Sol will be the new thing going forward. We then see Opus roughly being at the same price as 5.5 in pricing, but remember that all the Fable models, all the Claude models roughly spend 3 times the amount of the tokens when running, so they are essentially 3 times more expensive. Terra is an interesting kind of budget model now. It's almost as good as the high things here, and when we go down to the low, it's roughly the same as well. So I think Terra will be quite good for non-developers in Codex, for example. It's back to the level of 5.4 in pricing, which is really, really good, because the switch from 5.4 to 5.5 really hurt small companies, like, for example, the one I'm helping, in that the price really, you could really feel the extra price and the extra tokens you needed to buy for the business subscriptions. And now the people who don't need to really have the highest level of capability, those people running 5.5 in low mode, could probably switch to a Terra in high or X high and get better experience. So right now, people running 5.5 low is here, but now they could roughly switch to a low in here to get more capability at the same price, or to a medium and actually get for half the price much more capability. So Terra might be a sleeping success in here. Luna is $1, so it's close to the mini levels, but still a little higher up, probably because we are jumping up not even between 5.5 but 4.4 and higher. So again, I think it's a kind of new level of getting a mini model out there, which will probably be some of the things I will be using inside my own code, where we don't need too much intelligence. I really see it as, for coding, we need the best models, so up in this tier, while for classification, support and such things, we normally use the mini models in real life code, unless it's something really important. And then we now get a Luna model that can be the workhorse of simpler AI tasks that are running in backgrounds in various agent framework agents. No mention of a Nano. So the really cheap parts doesn't really seem to happen. Perhaps it's just going Nano low and you get something, but still a bit unclear on what actually happens to the Nano, because the Nano was really good at the small intent request and so on, and we don't really have that here now. Let's move on. As mentioned, they don't show too many benchmarks, but what is most important for OpenAI, of course, in terms of publicity and so on, is it's actually better than Meta's and Fable 5. So we see that 5.6 Sol Ultra wins over any model here with 92%, while the Sol still also beat both Meta's and Fable, and Meta's in normal people don't really exist because we don't have access to it. So it's more to say 5.6 Sol versus Fable 5, and there we get a significant jump again. And even the Terra model is on par with Fable 5. So that's really a strong signal from OpenAI to send that they are actually just their mid-tier model is just as good as Fable 5. So it is interesting, but also the hype about Fable, we can see here that 5.5 was very close to it. So it seems like OpenAI is taking the lead again. And again, we have these models here that are really good, even at a $1 per million token level. So interesting times in terms of that. Another cool thing that is something I've been looking forward to, but it's probably too expensive. They don't give any pricing. But back in like 6 months ago, they made that GPT-5 could run on Cerebras. Cerebras is an AI lab that have a different way of running models in that they can run them really fast. They have a different technology to run them. So they are back then it was only some small mini models that could run on Cerebras, so they could run there, but there was only the small models that could actually run there. So you couldn't get the, I think it was 5.2 or something like that at that point, where you couldn't get good intelligence, but could really fast. So it was kind of a test bet for OpenAI to figure out how they can actually run their models. And now they're running their greatest model, 5.5 Sol, on Cerebras with up to 750 tokens per second. And if you don't know, a 5.5 right now would roughly run 60 to 7 tokens per second on normal API. So we're talking a really, really big jump in speed, but this will probably come at a really, really high cost at the moment. But no pricing mentioned yet, but it's really, really cool that this might be the new norm for us in 6 to 9 months, which is really cool. On to the bad things. And you probably, if you just follow along and have seen the headlines on YouTube, in other videos and so on, we can't get it. So we saw the ban of Fable 5 by the US government, and many people thought, okay, it's a small misunderstanding and so on. It's been, I think it's 15 days after today that we still don't have it back. It seems like there's talks about it, there's some indications that Fable is getting back, but it's not back yet. So it has been a little more than just a big misunderstanding in what's going on. And the reason why I mentioned in the beginning that I'm surprised that we are even getting a 5.6 at the moment, I had thought before the Fable ban that we would have gotten ChatGPT 5.6 like 2 weeks ago, just after Fable 5. But then the ban happened, and then I was actually thinking, okay, that might... we don't ever hear anything about a 5.6 until the Fable debacle have been resolved, which it haven't yet. But now we are hearing it. It's on a Friday afternoon, and that is probably because they want to get it out there, but they don't want to hype it too much because we can't get it. So meaning can't get it is that a few selected companies around the world, cybersecurity companies, the government, and so on, is running it at the moment. So it does exist somewhere, but we can't get it in Azure, we can't get it in OpenAI's own platform, we can't get it in OpenRouter, any place right now. And that's because, if you haven't heard about it, the US government had begun to shut down these models. Fable was shut down, and this is also what you can see in the announcement. Everything is about talking about cybersecurity, how good the model is at not being abused by that, and so on and so forth. So it seems like OpenAI are taking the same stance as Anthropic in that they comply at the moment, but they don't really like this new approach that models should be vetted by the government in this way, at least. So they talk about they develop a cyber executive order framework in how to release new models. So right now we can't get them. The ban from Fable is about American citizens can get it, but not foreign nationals can get it, which is impossible to enforce. In how do you do that when you just buy a model for a company who has both American citizens and non-American citizens and so on. So it's a big mess right now. We need to figure this out, but it gives me a little hope that they were right in the coming weeks. Coming weeks can mean all kinds of things, but I also think that it means that they must know some inside information about this is soon being resolved, because I definitely don't think we will see 5.6 before we see Fable again. That would send some very odd signals, and if they knew from inside information that it would be a long time until Fable got back, I don't think they would have even tried to put this out and to scare the government even more. So I think there is some kind of thing on the way, but we will see. Another bad thing is there is a higher chance it will do false positive refusals. This already happens in 5.5 in that if you write anything about any kind of security related stuff, you might get a small message in your codex, for example, that the model refused to work on this. And there's a lot of false positives, meaning, for example, I made a small skill that could look into an internal knowledge base. And I asked that skill to give me the Wi-Fi password. And that was actually flagged as a cybersecurity risk. But then I asked, how do I get on the internet? And it worked. So there is this false positive. And in the announcement of 5.6, they also mentioned that this actually will happen even more while they are ironing out these new on-the-fly fly checks on what happens. So essentially what happens, every single request will go to a smaller model that will evaluate if this is harmful or not. And because everyone is scared of being banned at the moment, if someone can jailbreak them, they will just crank up the mistrust of every single prompt to a much higher level, and we will end up with way too many false positives. So it's a little like when the antivirus programs and malware providers began to use AI, and it flagged everything left, right, and center as a virus, despite it not being it at all. That slowly went away, and but still happens a few times, and that is what's gonna happen here again. A final thing on the bad side, which I don't really know if should be here or more in the unknown section. I'm not 100% sure, but among the pricing when they announced that, which we have covered, they also write this. GPT-5.6 also introduced more predictable prompt caching, including support for explicit cache breakpoints and a 30-minute window cache live. For GPT-5.6 and later models, cache writes are built at 1.25x the model's uncached input rate, while cache reads continue to receive 90% cache input. This is quite a confusing sentence if you know how caching works in 5.5. So in 5.5, there's automatic caching. If you use more than 1,000 tokens. You don't control it, it just happens. It's good, it's easy, you don't forget it, and you don't pay extra for it. What I'm reading here on the screen is more how Claude does it, where you actually need to say, for this prompt I want to cache. For this prompt I want to cache, and in Claude you also pay extra. And it's this word explicit versus implicit. I don't know if this is a complete replacement or just a new option for people who want to do the same way as Anthropic does it, because they know upfront we can begin to cache everything because we are going over the 1,000 token limit anyway. So why not have the cache immediately and get the 90% rate at the. So is this an addition that you can control? Oh, if you want it like this, you can do it. Else you can just ignore this and get the same good way of doing it right now. Or is this a kind of money grab to get 1.5x out of everyone because we want caching? It's very, very unclear to me. The system card doesn't tell you about it, and again, because it's so limited here, I'm very unsure what this is about. But For small demos like we do in the Agent Framework videos and stuff, this is not a problem. For Codex, this could actually become a money sink where we actually pay not the $5, but actually the 6 point something dollars instead. Finally, the unknowns, they are quite simple. When exactly can we use this? Again, the post says in the coming weeks, but when we're dealing with the government, it can suddenly stall. Someone wants something extra in. We have no clue, but only time will tell. It doesn't really say anything who will actually get access in the coming weeks. Is it only Americans? Because else we don't comply with what the government said about Fable, that it should be American nationals only. Was that just a scare? What is that about? Am I in Europe not being able to get it, while people in the US will be able to run something that is much more advanced? That definitely gives a competitive advantage to Americans. It will bridge the gap between the haves and have-nots just of where you live now. That would be very problematic in my mind. Of course, I'm saying that because I want access to the model, but also more general that will that at some point mean that we can't even get OpenAI in Europe at any point? And also in general, if they actually do this, how do we want to enforce it? How do they refuse that everyone suddenly jumps on a VPN and shows that they are inside the US? Will there be checks of passports and everything for every user that can? And still, if you do that, how can you even enforce that with an API? And finally, of course, is this the new norm? Are we gonna hear about models and then sit and be excited and then not use it for weeks or months? Of course, there's always been software that certain things will be previewed and then you will get it later, and public betas, private betas, and so on. But also the fact that none of the influencers on YouTube, the really big ones, they have not gotten access to 5.6 like they do normally, and they normally get it a couple of weeks in advance. That have not happened this time, and they are really, really pissed in their videos at the moment on why can't we get access and so on. And welcome to our world where we don't get preview access, and welcome to Europe where we don't often get the new features that are introduced in Americas because they are only translated into English, or the EU have blocked something. That's not what's happening here. So I guess us Europeans are kind of used to things not being immediately available to us, but the LLMs were not one of those things. They were immediately available to us like anyone else, but now it doesn't seem to be that way. So very unknown what's going on, what's happening. Will there be a new kind of policy everyone need to go to? Why is the US government doing that? Because they are probably the least known, least intelligent people about what an LLM can do and so on. We can see that from all the miscommunications in Fable and what it can do and what it can't do. So unknowns, as mentioned. It looks like to be some really, really good models, some really, really good trends in what they cost. So it's not just running amok, but actually getting cheaper now, which is really good. But until we can get them, until we get all the other benchmarks, all the other things, or we can try it out in ourselves, it is unknown. It's really, really good that a standard is coming along with efforts, so we can get some defaults into that. But unknowns at the moment. Hopefully the post is right, and we will get rid of all these unknowns and have them running on our machines in a couple of weeks. So we will see. Thank you. See you in the next one.